All right, welcome back to ABA Exam Review and the continuation of our BCBA practice question series. Today, we are continuing to go through a new set of questions and working through them together. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. Glinda, a board-certified behavior analyst, designs a multiple baseline design across 3 classrooms to evaluate a new social skills program. Data show that social interaction increases only in the first classroom where the intervention was introduced, while the other 2 classrooms stay relatively the same. What does this pattern suggest about this intervention? So we have an experimental design question, and there's a few things you want to key in for experimental designs. The most important thing really is how do we demonstrate functional control or experimental control with each experimental design. You want to understand that. 2, you've got to be able to read the data. And 3, you've got to be able to understand a question like this where no data are presented, but you still have to understand what is happening in the design. In this case, we have a multiple baseline design across 3 classrooms. So we have 3 classrooms, and let's just say our baselines are here, here, and here. And so what Glinda has done is introduced the intervention in the first classroom. So the change is here, and it says social interaction increased. So that's good, right? What is going to happen in the other 2 conditions? We are going to continue with baseline, and then introduce, and then introduce, so on and so forth. So far, though, we've only introduced it to the first classroom, and the other baselines have stayed the same. Now, with a multiple baseline, that's what you want. You want your other baselines where the intervention wasn't introduced to stay relatively the same. With that said, what does this pattern so far suggest about this intervention? A, the intervention caused a functional change. So far, all we know is there was a change in the first condition. We haven't gone through every condition yet, so we cannot say for sure there's been a functional change. Because we've only done 1 condition. There could have been confounds. There could have been extraneous variables we didn't control for, like confounds. And we might not have control yet. So B, there's not enough evidence yet for experimental control is the better answer. Yes, it's a good start, but we haven't even finished the design yet. So we can't claim functional control or a functional change or experimental control without even finishing the design. C, baseline was not long enough to justify the intervention. Baseline is still going. It doesn't mention necessarily how long baseline was. C doesn't really fit. D, data shows that the program should only be used in the first classroom. Again, the design isn't done. Don't get ahead of ourselves. Before we make any of these decisions, we have to actually finish the design. Until then, there's not enough evidence for experimental control. A city agency wants to reduce the amount of litter in public parks. They install highly visible, clearly marked trash bins throughout the parks and launch a public awareness campaign using posters with catchy slogans like, "Keep our parks clean." After 1 month, they notice a slight decrease in litter, but not as significant as hoped. A behavior analyst reviewing this intervention would most likely suggest that the next step should involve what? All right, another question. We've got a couple difficult ones to start, but we're just going to attack and stay calm. So let's read the question. Let's understand what it's asking. If you're the behavior analyst reviewing this intervention, what is the next step going to be? We have an agency. They're trying to reduce litter. We always want to identify our behavior. What do? They install trash bins, and they have a campaign, and they have a slogan. And after 1 month, there's kind of a decrease, but it's not really a significant change. And that's a problem if we're not making a significant change. So you come in as the behavior analyst, right? What's the first thing you're going to want to do coming into this intervention? A, increase the fines for littering. Well, jumping straight to punishment doesn't necessarily seem like a great idea. You haven't even evaluated what is happening yet. B, offering a lottery ticket to individuals observed properly disposing of trash. Have you done a preference assessment? Have you done any assessments? No. So just like we don't want to introduce punishment arbitrarily, introducing what we perceive as possible reinforcement arbitrarily might not be the best idea either. They've already tried several different things. So C, conducting an observational assessment to identify why littering is still occurring, is probably the best way to go about it. Remember, before any assessment with the client, with the technician, or any intervention, I should say, we have to do an assessment. That's your first step, no matter what. When you get to a new client, a new contract, whatever you're doing, assessment comes first. D, removing all existing trash bins to encourage people to take the trash home. Possible intervention, but we won't know until we've done our own assessment. Always, always, always do your own assessment. A behavior analyst is developing a treatment plan for a client with a history of self-injurious behavior maintained by automatic reinforcement. During session, the client often engages in SIB when periods of low activity occur. Which intervention package would be most appropriate and ethically sound for the SIB? Now, when we get into a situation where you can be harmed or the client can be harmed, certain things might change, right? Because our number one priority is do no harm. So when developing treatment plans for self-injurious behavior, especially with automatic reinforcement, it's going to be a challenge, right? Because self-injurious behavior is serious. That could cause harm. One of the keys here, though, is also periods of low activity. So it is automatic, but it happens during periods of low activity. So we may be able to use that in our intervention. Now, we want to be appropriate and ethical. So let's look at A. A high-intensity, positive punishment applied immediately after each SIB instance. Now, punishment normally is not a first step, but given the scenario, punishment is more acceptable. However, is that still going to be our first reaction? It shouldn't be. We should never use punishment first. Is there something better? B, differential reinforcement of other behavior on a 1-minute interval with the reinforcer being preferred tangibles. What's wrong with B? Well, one, a DRO doesn't teach a replacement. You're just hoping the activity or the SIB doesn't occur. Two, tangibles isn't necessarily why they're engaging in it, right? So using a DRO is not necessarily going to be the greatest idea because we're not actually teaching anything to replace the SIB. C, non-contingent access to a wide variety of sensory-based preferred items along a differential reinforcement of alternative behavior. Much better. To eliminate low activity, we can just have non-contingent access to items they want to play with. Additionally, we can start teaching replacement behaviors in lieu of that SIB. C is better than B. One, they get this non-contingent access, which is going to eliminate low activity, hopefully. Two, DRA is going to teach a replacement behavior. And then D, extinction burst management using physical restraint until SIB ceases. Restraint is a topic that obviously would take an entire presentation to cover, but that is absolutely not your first reaction to restraint, because restraint is dangerous and typically there are laws against restraint. And so D should not be really in consideration here. Best answer is C, non-contingent access to a wide variety of sensory-based preferred items alongside differential reinforcement of alternative behavior. A grocery store manager wants to encourage customers to use reusable bags. They implement a system where customers who bring their own bag are automatically entered into a weekly drawing for a $25 gift card. Drawings occur every Sunday, and multiple entries increase the customer's chances. If the drawing is the reinforcer, what type of schedule is this? All right, basic reinforcement schedule question. Should be pretty straightforward. We've identified the drawing as the reinforcer. So that's going to be our consequence. The manager, they want customers to use reusable bags. System, customers who bring bags can enter into a drawing for a $25 gift card. Now, does it matter how many bags they bring? Is that going to have the drawing occur? No. When does the drawing occur? Every Sunday. So no matter how many bags they bring, that drawing is going to occur every Sunday. So to get the reinforcement, are we waiting on responses or time? Well, we're waiting on time. A certain amount of time has to pass in order to get to Sunday. So if it's a time-based schedule, it's going to be an interval schedule. Now, if it's every Sunday and it's not changing, is that fixed or variable? Well, that's going to be fixed. So this is going to be a fixed interval schedule. Pretty straightforward. Basic reinforcement schedules should not be that challenging. Luca is behind on filling out data sheets for a client's target behaviors. Luca considers filling in estimated numbers based on memory. He comes to you for guidance. Ask the supervisor, what should you or Luca do in this situation? So on paper, this is a very easy decision to make, right? Hopefully. We have a situation where Luca, he's behind on filling out data sheets. Now, that's a problem, right? Because data sheets need to be daily updated all the time. Luca thinks he's just going to fill in estimated numbers based on memory. That's also a problem. We don't estimate data, ever. Estimated data can only lead to incorrect decisions. So he asked you, the supervisor, what should you do? Now, what should you tell Luca to do or you to do in this situation? A, help Luca fill in the data based on past sessions to stay caught up. No, there is no catching up now. Session's over. We can't do this from memory, right? We can't possibly remember everything that occurred. B, change or modify the current goal to stay current. Well, just because there's a data collection mistake or data's missing doesn't mean we need to change the current goal. C, delete the session note to hide the gap in the data. Definitely not. We don't want to know. We don't just want to pretend it never happened, right? What needs to happen is Luca needs to be retrained on data taking. That's going to be one of your primary jobs, is making sure training is constantly occurring, especially when mistakes are made. We cannot go back and just arbitrarily start filling in these data sheets just because we're missing data. It's going to be tough maybe for your reports and maybe for your interventions, but we have to be ethical and we've got to do the intervention the right way. Thanks for watching. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials. When you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout-out. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.